And what ends up bringing you to New York?
Pretty much the desire to make music. It was officially it was to go to grad school, but that grad school was kind of just the excuse to. I wanted a reason besides just saying like, hey, I'm gonna go like meet other rappers and stuff, which was not. It didn't seem like a concrete enough plan, and so I got accepted to grad school and was pursuing that, and then ended up doing both. So
Hmm.
kind of how it worked out.
So what was your grad school degree in?
I went to get my master's in classics. Classics is like the study of the ancient Greco-Roman world, like mostly focused on the languages, so ancient Greek and Latin. And I ended up switching that to do my doctorate, which I completed a few years ago. I think I got my doctorate in 2018. So yeah, like no, more than that, 4 years ago now. So
What's your thesis for your doctorate?
my dissertation is about a philosopher named Alfred North Whitehead, who's like a mid 20th century, early to mid 20th century philosopher, and specifically like what he used from Plato. Plato being a Greek philosopher from the 5th century BCE, and specifically it's about how he used Plato to try and explain some of the strange phenomena that were emerging in science in the early 20th century, specifically quantum mechanics
Right.
and bizarre features of that. And he was trying to figure out what's a way that we can understand this metaphysically and philosophically because it doesn't really jive with common sense. And so to do so, he imported a lot of ideas from Plato. And the ideas that he imported from Plato were really ones that went back to earlier Greek philosophy that have their roots in the notion of what's called panpsychism. Panpsychism is the notion that soul or mind or the quality of mindedness is something that permeates all of nature and all of matter. It's not specific just to organic, complex life forms with brains, but rather everything, even atoms and even the subatomic parts of atoms, pulse and throb with a kind of mindedness. And so the strange phenomena that we encounter there is because it's equally psychic phenomena as physical phenomena. And the difference between the physical and the psychic is actually not as ironclad as science typically presupposes. So
So if all that to say, the people who talk about energy and crystals might be onto something.
I think they are in many ways. I think like the pop version of it, like sort of the pop spirituality surrounding quantum mechanics and stuff. It's not that it's off base, and it does have power to it, but also sometimes it's so abstract and so general that it's not necessarily meaningful either. So it's like sort of a fine line, just like with any spiritual idea. Like if it's not tied to like a really concrete view of the world, and more importantly, if it's not tied to an actual ethics, like a way of living in the world, where you're like, okay, so since I have these views, I'm going to be like ecologically minded. You know what I mean? If it's not tied to actual behaviors and a way of life, then I don't know, then it's not necessarily substantial. That's not to dismiss pop spiritualism though, because a lot of people get a lot out of it and it can be very meaningful.
No, I hear what you're saying. I just thought it was nifty how that's kind of what I heard you saying, was the energy stuff that they describe. I like what you brought with the application to the real world. I feel like that's super
Mm.
important with just everything though. Like you can read 100 hustle culture books, but are you pushing a hustle?
Yeah, I honestly, this is like a huge thing for me. This is like sort of my main aspiration for this year, and I've heard other people aspire similarly. So like, I hope we can follow through on it. Is like even with myself, like just trying to ignite this sense of urgency. Like I spend so much time trying to spread ideas through my music, and that's well and good. But and I also, have been known to be an activist at times, but I really think that the only way we're going to generate the changes that we collectively recognize we need is to be full time, all the time, full on, all in activists about trying to transform what we have going on here. Transforming it on an ecological level, on a socioeconomic level, on a racial justice level, all of these things that, in the past couple of years, like we've all gotten inklings of like, oh, we can actually transform things if we all dedicate ourselves to it. Uh, that we got to follow through on that collective realization. And I'm not trying to say that some people haven't been doing that full time. They have. I personally, though, am realizing that I need to make that commitment absolute.
I
But
think
you can't ask the absolute of everyone.
no, but I think there's something to be said that artists could be more committal to causes.
yeah, it gets really complicated because, there is a sense, as they say with like virtue signaling and stuff, where you feel like you've cultivated the information for the day, you've taken in some information, you've reposted it, you've maybe like found a really good way to like spread somebody else's message that you believe in, and it's like done for the day, clock out, But circulating information in an echo chamber is not the same as political transformation, Nor is political transformation necessarily really brought about by voting the right way or finding the right person to vote for. It's about actually creating it, which I realize I'm still being very abstract and vague, but what I mean is that, let's say what we're talking about is transforming the ecological conditions of like the place that we live. Like, are you doing those things? Do you compost? Are you involved with a community garden that's down the way from where you live? And not only are you involved with it, but are you making it so it's a substantial part of like where you get your food, such that you're transforming the place that you live into the place that everywhere could be, and making an example out of it. I don't know. So I don't mean to ramble about it. It's just been very
Nah,
much on
it's
my mind, like
for one
transmitting this stuff
thing,
into action.
like my girlfriend is definitely on the same level of eco focus as you are. I'm not there as dedicated, but I've come a long way. Definitely more invested in the
I feel you.
ecological endeavors of life. I compost. I'm like now good at
Nice.
it. I'm good at remembering this is sort of. Sometimes I catch myself, but like I do the whole split between compost, recycling, and trash. And yo, I
Nice.
realized like, yo, there was a lot of garbage stuff that we were throwing out that was compostable, and I would say like it cut my trash, like the garbage bags, like 50%, 60% is just in the compost now.
Oh yeah, no, it's way better. And once you start doing it, once you start composting, you can't really stop because you start to realize that how wrong it is, just like on a gut level. Like, how could I put a banana peel in the trash? It's not where it goes. You know what I mean? It becomes very visceral.
Yeah, I got
It's
classically
like,
conditioned by my girlfriend, but it ends up being the same way.
yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like once you're conditioned, you can't go back, which is the whole idea, because that's a more authentic relationship with that little bit of matter. That banana peel wants to be composted. It wants to be transformed. It does not want to be compressed with a bunch of non-biodegradable items and then release methane and, you know, cause more climate change. That's not what it wants. And I say the verb wants specifically, again, from that like panpsychistic perspective, that in a sense, you could argue very cogently that it does have a sense of want. It has a sense of belonging built into it inherently, and a sense of value and purpose built into it inherently. We're almost home, by the way.
That's fair. I figured like it
But
got
on
dark,
the
and so I was like,
yeah.
he's carrying shit. This is where we're in the pocket or something.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're always trying to be in the pocket. So speaking of compost, shout out to Hill of the Killer, my collaborator. She and I have this song called Compost, and so that's why it's one of the reasons it's on my mind, is because it was a big project for us.
Yeah, I like her. Everything she does is a globe.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, she's working right now on something called the Earth Show, which is going to be like a dedicated, ongoing show starring her as the Earth and exploring different ecological topics with different guests and stuff. So it's a cool thing. It's in development.
So yeah, after you get to New York and you go through the school thing, well, I guess the early part of the school thing, because you kind of ran the school thing for a while if you finished in 2018. Um, how does integrating into the New York scene like, and and how do you like approach music at this point? Because you're coming from like the more university route, which is more different than other routes of getting into music. And what's that experience like?
It took a long time. I mean, it just took many twists and turns. When I first was starting in New York, I didn't really find myself immediately immersed in the hip hop scene the way I would have liked to, mostly just because I wasn't intelligent enough about where to go find it, and I didn't meet people that brought me directly to it right off the bat. That took some time. So I started out playing music with a collective called Show and Smell that are still like really, really close friends of mine, particularly an artist named Ryan Patrick Martin. And he and I had a duo for a while that was like really experimental. Like I would rap and he had like a bunch of vintage synthesizers and vintage drum machines and stuff. And it was about as like off the wall as you could imagine. Very like Anticon type of vibe, like just like this, not what typically somebody would think of as, you know, your garden variety approach to hip hop. But we were doing that for a while, but we were mostly playing in like non-hip hop type of spaces. We were playing like shows with indie bands and stuff like that. And we were sort of the odd person out. I'm really out of breath from that laundry experience.
That's what happens sometimes.
But yeah, so after that, well, through doing that, we eventually got linked up with this collective in New York called Brooklyn Wildlife. And that's led by a guy named Chris Carr. And Chris, aka Stonehenge Parnashnikovsky, is his MC name. And Chris is like an amazing, it's just one of the most talented poets and rappers that I know, and an amazing organizer. So he was putting on events that are very eclectic, but there's a lot of rappers, but also a lot of just other kinds of art. And that's when I really felt like I had found some traction. And then I think it was through knowing that scene that I got to know some of the people that would lead me, you know, to End of the Week and to the other hip hop events that were going on, like Freestyle Mondays and Supreme Bars. And shout out to all these sort of interconnected nodes of, you know, New York hip hop culture and freestyle culture. So that's sort of the journey that it went on.
So like while you were like pursuing these events, were you also like making your own projects and mixtapes and things like that?
Yeah. I was still just recording and doing my thing. And the first project that I finally like sort of completed that was like at least resembles what I'm doing now was called Quantum Electro Flavor Dynamics, which was, so I used to go by Sir Nate, and I, you know, still sometimes affectionately do to people who know me. And Quantum Electro Flavor Dynamics is like it's about quantum physics. It's like a quantum physics epic thing in a concept album form about various problems and situations in modern science. And that took me like a year to complete, but I did it, and it, you know, that was like the first thing that sort of resembles the tip that I'm on, with this fusion of educational and philosophical material and music and rapping about it, because that's when I was starting to get into those ideas, and you know, with my academic career, and that's when I was getting to the place musically that I was capable of making that fusion, you know.
That's like a wild concept. And so you basically not criticized, but explored the issues of science via rap in a way. So
Yeah.
where like most scientists are not, or most people aren't going to approach it via hip hop.
Most people, but I mean, there's exceptions. It was only like a year after that, I think, that the collab between Jizza and Neil deGrasse Tyson came out. I don't remember if it's an album that they did together or if it ended up being a show. It was originally planned as an album. There was at least one song. I'm not sure. Anybody in the Zoom know about what or have know more about? There's like a collab between Neil deGrasse Tyson and Jizza, where they like explore stuff about, you know, deep space cosmology and astronomy and things like that. So there are others. There are others who have done it. Really, the guy doing it par excellence, like science rap, is Baba Brinkman, who is also well known in the NYC community here. Do you know Baba? He's made a career out of like the science rap thing, and I discovered him like a few years after that, and that was like really
the only like
and through yeah.
The only science music person I know is acapella science.
Acapella science? I'm not familiar.
He would grab pop songs and make science parodies out of them, and he got like kind of wild buzz off that before it was probably too problematic to pursue that realistically.
Yeah, that sounds like it's maybe sort of in the same wheelhouse. So I would say this, like, you brought up the word parody. That was a thing that started coming up a lot right as I was hitting my stride, and it still comes up with my music, with Hilla's music, with our music together. It's like, oh, I love the parody music you make, which not everybody says, but people who know nothing about hip hop will often say that. They're like, oh, this is a parody rap. It's funny because it's about science, or it's funny because I'm learning. which is such a misunderstanding. I mean, there are a few things that really like get my goat, but that's one of the things that gets my goat, because it's like, no, this is not parody. This is what hip hop has always done. I'm just doing it about something that happens to come from what you associate with academia, but this is the function of this forum, you know, as it's been, you know, since the golden era, since, you know, it's edutainment, you know. It's built into the DNA. And even going back prior to hip hop, it's built into the DNA of the griot tradition and of any bardic tradition, you know, in the West or the East or wherever, you know. The teaching through music and the gesture of informing the community about philosophical, political, or scientific or mythic ideas, and the gesture of singing and poem making being one stream of expression, that's the oldest, you know. That's the arts as they originally were and the sciences as they originally were.
That's
Yeah.
fair. In his case, it was straight up parodies. Like, it was like to the fucking T.
Yeah, sorry. That was a really excessive tirade based on your
However,
offhand comments about
I
that guy.
have seen a couple of, I think it's because, like, sometimes, like, I saw one of Gila's reels and she took Cardi B's flow or something. And I could see how, like, if you look at that right quick.
That particular one, yeah, she does do a parody of WAP, which is Wet Ass Planet. So that's true.
So,
and it's in a strict sense, it's a parody.
In that case, I would say that's fair. But typically, I don't know. I could see how people would think it's like parody rap because y'all are going down the more exaggerated theatrics of stuff. Like, y'all go like balls to the fucking walls with costumes. I'm like,
that's true.
And then like your editing is ridiculous. Like, honestly, y'all are just like meant for TikTok. I don't know if the transition is. I feel like the transition happened again. We're off the phone.
Yeah, it did. Sorry.
And then we gotta switch the spotlights and stuff again for it to be having you back on cam. But we can still hear you, which is what's the most important part. But yeah.
Yeah, TikTok has had some. It's been a good boost, and TikTok is a very creative place. I mean, I do like that about it. It does have its ups and downs, though. I mean, like, I've had 2 videos that started blowing up. It changes. Everything changes quickly, and it's changing quickly, just like all the platforms have. They go from being really ideal to being very co-opted very quickly. You know what I mean? And very messy very quickly, and compromising artistically. And I feel like that happened with YouTube from how it was originally to how it is now. Definitely happened with Instagram, which used to be a lot different culture surrounding it. And I can feel that happening with TikTok just because I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking from my own subjective angle, but in the past week I've put up 2 videos that were doing really well, and then they got taken down for just off the wall content violation things that are inexplicable. I mean, one of them had some references to smoking pot, but it was a song about how you should think if you really want to smoke pot or not. It was a song about like, don't assume you want to smoke just because it's always nice. Ask yourself. That was the premise of the song. And they took it down. And there was people who were commenting like, oh, this is what I needed to hear right now. Thanks for this reminder. I'm trying to be more intentional about my, you know, treatment of this sacred substance. And, you know, but the algorithm doesn't know. It hears the word and it takes it down.
Yo, I had a situation one time. I mean, I'm not even gonna pretend like I really TikToked. I have spent like 8 or 9 days maintaining the 3 or something videos a day you're supposed to do or whatever. But like one time I tried to TikTok and I smoked a joint, and then a kid flagged me, and then I had to be like, no, it's legal where I'm at. I'm confused, and then they unflagged me. And because I looked up the violations, and like it's not illegal here. I mean, I don't know about monetization, but I don't even know if Canada's monetized yet. I just think we TikTok.
Yeah, I'm not sure quite what the parameters are, but yeah, no, I mean, that's fortunate that you were able to get reinstated.
But I have no following or anything, right? Like, I'm so uncool on TikTok. I'm at that point where it's like
so. Yeah, it does. I'm becoming more, not more pessimistic about the situation, but more, I think, soberly aware of the gravity of the situation. When I say the situation, I mean the fact that the cost of all of this opportunity to share information is control of that information. both in the sense of what we're exposed to and what we can do with it. Because if you start to build a career off of, your career nowadays starts from a viral video on one of your channels or a handful of viral videos. And if that video gets taken down, or if that video gets made so only 18-year-olds can see it on YouTube or something like that, that drastically changes the arc of your career as it's beginning to develop. And the trade-off is that used to be something that you had the record companies with all of their lawyers. If you were lucky enough to be the one to get the shot, once you had the shot, you really were, in many ways, you had an arsenal behind you, that you don't. Not only do you not have that arsenal now, but there's actually nobody to appeal to. I mean, it's not like there's somebody on the other end who's deciding that your content is not appropriate. It's not even a person most of the time. And so there's no appeal that you can make. And it's going to become more and more like that, or at least if it continues to trend in this direction. And so the price of the ease of transmission is the I guess quality of the experience of transmission.
I think
and the amount of control you have.
I think it's gonna like compensate in the way the metaverse seems to be pushing private spaces and stuff, right? So like technically speaking,
Right.
on Twitch, there's a degree of censorship. Or like whatever live platform you're on. There's censorship. Like we all have the terms and conditions. But on that Discord private room, there's no rules. It's your rules.
Right.
Now, I think a lot of people are gonna have to like rethink how social media works. Virality, it's cool, but like it's hard to maintain it. Like it's hard to keep up that threshold. But in theory, if you're on the grind and you structure your creation right, you just funnel your core audience into the spaces where you can go into that full level of creativity. And then in the public world, we are going to have to go a lot more vanilla, I think. I don't think that's going to be that avoidable. But that doesn't mean that it'll just be like you have to be satisfied that you're only 1,000 people instead of 1,000,000 people are going to see it. Like it doesn't mean we can't have it. It's just the scale, I think, is going to change.